I think that we raise a flag. We raise the flag that speaks about the need for centrality and about the boundaries of the Zionist state. And I think that if the government of Israel will adopt it, that would be a wonderful thing. We are being led in the last few years, and we all know it, by the most extreme government that Israel ever had. So I'm not looking up to this government to make the change. I am looking to the coming Knesset, when we will have elections, hopefully sooner than later, in order to see what we did there and try to implement it in the Knesset. This is something I'm yearning for.
Hello and welcome back to the ILTV Podcast. I'm Maayan Hoffman, Executive Editor of ILTV, and we are so happy to have back our viewers and our listeners. Now today we have a very interesting guest, somebody who you've probably heard of. His name is Yizhar Hess. He is the Vice Chairman of the World Zionist Organization. Welcome.
Toda rabba. It's glad to be here.
Great. Now, I want to get started by talking about the World Zionist Congress that took place at the end of last month here in Israel. Now, of course, there was supposed to be a very unifying moment for the Jewish world, but there was quite a bit of chaos that went on, some of which is culminating at this period of time as we finally established who will be the rotating chairs of the organization. Tell me a little bit about what actually was happening behind the scenes.
So the Congress, the World Zionist Congress, it's the parliament of the Jewish people. Almost 300,000 Jews all over the world participated in the democratic elections to elect their delegates to the Congress. And it's a political entity. You know, Herzl left us with a gift. It's the World Zionist Congress, and he, from the Second Congress on, insisted that that body would be a political one, that would be organized in a democratic fashion. And, you know, in politics, like we know, sometimes it gets heated, and it's not the first time. This is almost always the way things are in the Congress. And historically even, please allow me to say something about the Fourth Congress, when Chaim Weizmann, in order to fight Herzl, took his party to the balcony and didn't vote in order to... So these kinds of political, heated moments are part of the Zionist history every time. And this time, we know that we are living in a world where things are polarized in more than one way, and we are not living in an island. And it definitely had an impact on this Congress. I'm happy to say that, I'm part of the more liberal part. I'm one of the leaders of the center-left wing of the Congress, and we had a huge success. The resolutions that we were able to pass, the constitution amendments that we were able to pass, and other achievements that we'll get to in a moment, really gave all of us a sense of optimism. I know that from the outside, it looks like a chaos. The energy that the delegates took home to their communities is unbelievable. They felt, rightly, that they are fighting the good fight for Zionism, and the results are definitely showing it.
Amazing. And I've certainly, as we talk about Zionism has so many definitions, and people see Zionism in different ways and relate in different ways. So in some sense, it's very healthy, I think, to have such a robust conversation. I do want to talk about the resolutions that were passed. I do want to, at the same time, though, just before we get to that, unpack a little bit about what the leadership model is now going to look like. And just recently, we had this announcement that Doron Peretz, who's from the Mizrahi camp, is going to be in rotation with Yaakov Agoel. You're also part of the leadership. How does this shape up? And what was this whole story with Yair Netanyahu trying to get some kind of leadership role that would then crash the ability of a rotation?
So let's start with the leadership.
Okay.
In the previous Congress that was concluded in 2020, and up until now it's the same one, the key position of the head of Keren Kayemet Li'Israel, KKL, and WZO was in the hands of the right wing.
Mm-hmm. And right wing, you mean Likud?
Likud and Mizrahi.
Okay.
Today, meaning the new Congress, it is split 50-50. 50 to the liberal side, 50 to the Orthodox right-wing side, both in Keren Kayemet Li'Israel and in the WZO.
Wow.
Doron Peretz was elected to be chair, but it's temporarily. He is moving. He will resign according to the agreement and will become the president. It's an important role, but more ceremonial. And Yaakov Hagoel will serve for the first part of the term, and then someone from the liberal camp would be the chair in the second part of the term. So it is split evenly between the two blocks, the liberal one and the Orthodox one in the Congress, which is quite good, quite impressive, an achievement if you compare it to the previous Congress. Now, you did raise up a name that surprised us during the Congress. The Likud wanted to submit to be one of the department's head, Yair Netanyahu. And you know what? I'm so encouraged by the way it was not received. Yeah. The fact that it crashed in a second, the coalition agreement, and we had to start all over again because many of us felt that this is simply not done.
Well, he doesn't have any qualifications, does he?
Usually you do not interfere in the nominations of other parties. These are their roles. They can nominate whomever they want. But, even for that, there is a limit. And it wasn't something that even we coordinated because we were surprised. But it is something that so many of us felt, and it fell in a second. And one of the things that I'm proud in this agreement that will be signed hopefully today, that Yair Netanyahu is not there and won't be able to be there because any nomination needs to pass a vote. And second, this is another thing that I'd like to mention, that Otzma Yehudit, Ben-Gvir's party, is not part of the coalition.
And that was also a lot of chaos. If I remember, I saw many videos, a lot of fights going on. And generally speaking, with the political situation, the government is represented in these parties. But here, the far, the extreme right, and as you mentioned, Itamar Ben-Gvir's party was actually also eliminated. How are you able to achieve that? Because it's not something that's obvious that certain parties or people would be left out in such a heated, as you mentioned, political environment that we live in here in the state of Israel.
Well, they are not left out. They are part of the Congress because according to the Constitution, if you are a Zionist party in the Knesset, you have representation in the Congress.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that you need to serve in the government of the Congress, meaning in the WZO executive. This is a negotiation of a coalition agreement.
Okay.
And we insisted. The liberal side of the Congress insisted that there is a red line. When Kahana was a member of Knesset, he once wanted to give a speech at the Congress, and he was not allowed to get in. Like Prime Minister Shamir left the plenum of the Knesset when Rabbi Kahana gave a speech. And we felt that the right attitude of Zionism today is definitely to draw a line, that racism could not be part of the coalition agreement. They are represented in the parliament of the Jewish people. Okay. That's fine. We cannot do anything about it. But once you get a coalition of your partners, you can choose. And I'm happy to say that the Jewish people decided what are the limits of the Zionist discourse. And
on a very positive note, the ultra-Orthodox or the Haredi parties actually are more involved this time, if I understand correctly. And that's actually very representative of the divide, the makeup of the state of Israel, and a very important probably constituency, considering the discussions going on about the draft bill and about the future of the economy of Israel, even, and the stability of Israel, which is definitely, it's necessary to have Haredim involved.
So we passed a resolution in the Congress that calls the government of Israel to legislate a law that it would be obvious that everyone should serve in the army. It passed in a vast majority. Interestingly enough, the Haredim are now more represented in the Congress. So one could say, wow, how could it happen? Because for sure they didn't vote for that. This is true. But yet, the majority of the delegates are representing views of Zionism that are way more liberal than you might think. Having said that, it is true that the Haredim are now more represented in the Congress. They joined the Zionist movement, the Ashkenazi 5 years ago, the Sephardi 10 years ago, and they grew in numbers. They didn't grow in numbers that took votes from the liberal side of the Congress, but from the more legacy parties, from Likud and Mizrahi. So Likud and Mizrahi shrank, and the Haredi parties grew in numbers, which is true. I say it with lots of respect. They were able to mobilize their people more than other parties in the right wing.
And it's fascinating when you talk about, again, the different visions of Zionism, because for historically ultra-Orthodox parties were not necessarily Zionist, let's call it, and you're starting to see them get more active. It could be a good sign in some ways as well. One of the other things I wanted to really talk about was this idea of the coalition agreement and having the center-right and the center-left work together is really where the state of Israel in many ways needs to go. We had unity governments in the past. We obviously have a very different government in place now. We've been dealing with 2 years of a very, very destructive war that is hopefully coming more to a close. And, I thought when I remember the night that the decision was made, back when the Congress was happening, thinking to myself how incredible it is to see Yesh Atid and Likud working together and hoping that was some kind of vision for what might be in any future election. Tell me, do you feel that the World Zionist Congress and the organization can be reflective of what could potentially be, let's say we do have early elections, would Netanyahu be looking, in your opinion, to become back to more where we were before in the government, maybe to not marginalize, but to get rid of the Ben Gvir parties and some of these other extremists and to come together? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that we raise a flag. We raise the flag that speaks about the need for centrality and about the boundaries of the Zionist tent. Mm-hmm. And I think that if the government of Israel will adopt it, that would be a wonderful thing. We are being led in the last few years, and we all know it, by the most extreme government that Israel ever had. Mm-hmm. So I'm not looking up to this government to make the change. I am looking to the coming Knesset, mm-hmm. when we will have elections, hopefully sooner than later, in order to see what we did there and try to implement it in the Knesset. This is something I'm yearning for. And
do you see hope that could occur?
If you analyze the polls, I am optimistic. Yes, I'm optimistic. And, in this context, I'd like to remind us that one of the resolutions in the Congress that I'm so proud of, by the way, it's a resolution that my party, Merkaz, initiated, is to demand the government of Israel to have Vadat Hakira Mamlachtit, and a state commission for investigate the events of October 7th. And this decision also was adopted in a vast majority, in a huge majority. It tells you something about the involvement of World Jewry in what's happening in Israel, and it tells you something about the sentiment. Because if you would poll the Israeli society, you would see the same kind of sentiment. Most Israelis and most diaspora Jewry would like to see an independent investigation committee in order to know what really happened there.
Well, it's essential in order for it not to happen again, and you don't learn from mistakes that you don't know if you don't know what mistake was made. Now, it's very interesting. You mentioned again this idea of World Jewry. Now, so the organizations that make up the key of the World Zionist Organization is JNF, Keren HaYesod, mm-hmm. right, KKL, and the Jewish Agency. Am I getting that correct? Those are the four key organizations?
Yeah. So the World Zionist Organization, it's the umbrella. This is the Congress. And under that Congress, we have two daughter companies.
Okay.
One is the Jewish Agency. Mm-hmm. One is Keren HaYesod, and one is Keren Kayemet LiYisrael. Okay. The one who has the largest budget is Keren Kayemet LiYisrael, with a budget that is between $1 billion to $2 billion a year, which is significant, and 100% of the board of directors of Keren Kayemet LiYisrael, JNF, it's the Congress. It's a reflection of the Congress. So the elections that we had in the last year all over the world, with more than 300,000 people participate, are really serious elections about how, not only about values, but also how to allocate the Jewish people's assets.
And that's what I wanted to know. So what happens now? You've got these billions of dollars now to allocate. What are the kinds of activities or programs that we're looking to fund? Where does that money go? And how does it impact not only us in Israel, of course, but also World Jewry?
So most of that money at this stage is invested here in Israel. I'm proud to say that in the last 5 years, we invested hundreds of millions of shekels in the south and in the north. Due to what happened to Israel in the last 2 years, really many hundreds of millions. We invest also in Keren Kayemet LiYisrael in environment. We tripled the sum of money that is invested in fighting the climate change. And of course, we invest, not enough money in my eyes, but we invest significantly in Jewish education outside of Israel. In my eyes, the investment of the budget of the national institutions in Jewish education and in Jewish engagement programs outside of Israel is essential. When Herzl founded Keren Kemet Israel in 1902, it was to buy land in Israel. Today, it is still important, but the tangible task that we need to deal with now in World Jewry is, of course, the engagement with the Jewish heritage and the Jewish identity. And this is something that I would hope, and this is what we will be working on, that in the next few years we will allocate way more funds for Jewish programming outside of Israel.
And Yizhar, you traveled all over the United States, not just to LA and New York, I was hearing, but so many, many communities in order to talk about the vote before it happens. What did you find when you were there? I mean, before the war started, we spent a lot of time speaking about the divide between the Jewish diaspora and Israel. Now, obviously, since October 7th, we've learned that that has changed. But of course, there's also this vast frustration, as you mentioned, with the government of Israel, and there is some disillusionment, and there's a massive spike in anti-Semitism. And some people feel, gosh, if I'm tied to Zionism, I'm going to experience anti-Semitism, and that doesn't feel so good, and maybe there's no way around it at this stage. But what did you hear on the grounds from the Jews that you met with?
So I was meeting, I was visiting many communities, JCCs, federations, and I must tell you that I was a little, I didn't know what to expect, because what you just described, Maayan, is something that I was bothered by. And I was surprised. I was surprised to see how curious people were about what Zionism could mean today, and how relieved they were that there is a way to speak about liberal Zionism in a way that would make them proud. That we can talk about liberal Zionism without feeling that it's not, it is something that cannot be. This is something that what you read in the media, it is something that gives people the reasoning to remember why the dream of Zionism is the right one, why the state of Israel represents it, and to understand that in order to fix what needs to be fixed, in the arena of civil rights in Israel, in the arena of state and religion in Israel, and in the arena of the judicial reform that was just almost imposed on us a year before the war. This is something that could be dealt if we are represented, if the liberal voice is next to the table. And the fact that, the conservative movement is not the biggest stream in North America today, the fact that we grew in numbers, we doubled the numbers of voters. We increased worldwide in 15% in the number of seats in the Congress. It's a significant change. It means that people got it. People understood that activism in Zionism is something that could make a difference, and this is now our task. We have 5 years to make that difference.
And do you feel that some of that fire was lit because of October 7th? I mean, I never like to talk about silver linings from the war because I don't know how you can find something positive about 2 years of war. But yet, on the other hand, some of these shifts, I mean, I feel like if you had the election before the war, you might not have seen that growth. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Could be. During the, it's interesting. It's a very frank conversation. I'm happy that we have a chance to do it. During the judicial reform, a year before the elections, we felt a very strong sense that people are furious, like you saw in Israel, in the Israeli streets, also in other places in the world, and would like to have their voice heard. And we didn't know what would be the effect of October 7th, because it was like something that calls us all in the first months for sure, like to unify all of us under one flag. What is politics and elections which is also true. Right. I'm happy to say that we saw it all over the world, but that people could combine these two messages. People understood that when it comes to fighting our enemies, we need to be united. When it comes to the nature of the state of Israel, to the soul of the state of Israel, we need to be clear about our values. This is not something that you can camouflage. This is something that you fight for, because this is what politics is all about, right? It's a dispute over assets, over values, and this is something that you need to be engaged with. People got it.
Amazing. And I was reading, some of the works that you've written, certainly, in the last year and also right before the Congress. And one of the things that you wrote in the Times of Israel column was about this idea that we're at a turning point for Israel's national rebuilding. So do you still feel, after having gone through those several days of the Congress and the infighting, and yet, as you said, the unity and the passion and the Zionism, that the leadership that we now have in place, that the Jewish world, the 300,000 voters voted in, can handle this task of national rebuilding?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because the delegates went home, and I'm talking now the majority of the Congress, meaning the one who passed those resolutions, went home very energized. Very, their Zionist identity, was in rise. Yet we need to remember that as much as we want to be influential when it comes to the state of Israel, our budget is limited. Okay, even between $1 billion to $2 billion, if you compare it to the budget of the government, it's marginal. Yeah. Okay, so we can do a lot, but we cannot replace and should not replace the government.
Right.
Therefore, we should find the programs that have an added value. This is our task, not to complement what the government is doing, but to find the added value that we can, in order to make things that cannot be achievable by the establishment. This is what we'll try to do, to tell you that we will be the key player in rebuilding now Israel. I'm not sure because our resources are limited, but where we can be very influential is in Jewish communities outside of Israel. Mm-hmm. There, the investment of the government of Israel is marginal, and there I feel that this is our task. Okay, the majority of the Jewish people do not live in Israel. Okay, Israel is the second largest Jewish community in the world. The biggest largest Jewish community in the world is North America. 8 million Jews there, 7.5 million Jews here. We have 1.5 to 2 million Jews in other parts of the world. The majority of the Jewish people are not living in Israel. Yet we are the nation state of the Jewish people. In order to justify our name, in order to justify the reason that we convened here, we need to find a way to work jointly, to work with a pluralistic agenda, but with one vision in order to make sure that we will remain the nation state of the Jewish people, that we will be able to represent Judaism in a way that would dignify who we are, and vice versa. It's a work that both sides needs to work on.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the resolutions then that were passed that feed that agenda. Obviously, we can't go through them all, but what were the few key resolutions that were moved forward that you feel will enable that agenda to be achieved?
So from the coming from this Congress, mm-hmm. all the members of the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency, all the members on behalf of the WZO, all the members of the KKL Directorate and of Keren HaYesod, etc., would need to sign and to declare that they are committed to Megillat HaAtzmaut, to the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel, including, and it's specified, including a commitment for equality. That is not, and to fight this when it's not equality, when it comes to gender orientation or to men and women, or to not gender orientation, to gender equality and LGBT rights and everything. Everyone who is now fills an office in the building, in the establishment, needs to sign this kind of commitment. This is a constitutional amendment that we passed. In order to pass a constitutional amendment, you need to have 2/3 of the votes. Not an easy task. Yeah. It passed. This is one resolution that I'm sure that would define the representatives of all parties, including the Haredim. They would have to be committed to this. Otherwise, they cannot get into their positions. Important. Something that bothers us for many years, 7 years now, is a resolution that we submitted that has to do with the Kotel.
Okay.
The Kotel agreement was signed almost 10 years ago and never implemented.
That was the one under Jewish Agency chair at the time, Natan Sharansky.
Exactly. Okay. But what is even more bothering than that is that 7 years ago, a stone fell from the Kotel.
I remember that.
Immediately, there was all the money in the world and all the professionals in the world, to make sure that it goes back. Yet, the platform that it hit when it fell was never fixed. And today, in the egalitarian Kotel, there is no possibility to touch the wall. For 7 years now, the people that are coming to have their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah or just to daven in the egalitarian Kotel cannot touch the wall. Wow. That kind of a thing would have never happened in the other side of the wall. And it's not by chance that it didn't happen. The municipality of Jerusalem is dragging its feet. The Israeli government is not interfering. The mayor says it's the government. The government says it's the mayor. We talked
Welcome to Israel.
Welcome to Israel. We talked with with the secretary of the cabinet in the last board of governors of the Jewish agency, and he said, listen, it's not us, it's the mayor of Jerusalem. We met with the mayor. He said exactly the opposite. It is something that intentionally is not solved. Now, I cannot tell you how humiliating it is to come to that place feeling that you are a second-class Jew in the nation-state of the Jewish people. And this is an insult that we must fix. I'm happy that the Congress adopted that resolution and very firmly called the government of Israel to take care of it.
Now, I want to talk about some of the resolutions that didn't pass. So, for example, I understand that there was a resolution that really just called on the Congress to say thank you to Christian Zionists who are supporting the state of Israel or non-Jews who are Zionists in their own right. And that basic resolution, which wanted to have no money involved but a department in order to recognize that there are Zionists that are not Jewish or who are not Jewish, didn't pass. Why is there still a hang-up against Christian Zionists, for example, especially after October 7th, after 2 years of saying that once again, this is the community that really stood by Israel, helped to fund Israel, came to Israel in the aftermath of the war?
I'm not sure, Maayan, that I agree with the way that you described that resolution.
Okay. I mean, I read the text of it.
Yeah. It was a resolution that was geared towards evangelical Christians.
Yes.
Them and then them only. Not other religions and that are supporting Israel, individuals or groups or whatever. And when it came to the committee that dealt with it, there were some groups and individuals that offered amendments to this resolution in order to make it more inclusive, in order to make it not and it wasn't accepted.
Oh, the amendments were accepted. I understood there were amendments made to it. They weren't made?
But not amendments that made this resolution something that if you look at it very fairly, you feel, okay, it represents it all. This is one thing. Secondly, it also involved at least a desire to have a budget, to have birthright to evangelical Christians to Israel.
Okay.
Which is a big thing. I wish we had enough money to bring all Jews that we'd like to bring to Israel. Now to expand it, it's challenging with the limited resources. Maybe in the coming Congress or in the coming Vada Poel, every year we have like a small Congress, we'll be able to pass a resolution that would be more suitable to the spirit of inclusive thinking and ideology.
Interesting. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about your own party, the Merkaz Masorti movement, and how you are positioning yourself going forward. Tell me a little bit about the vision of the Merkaz movement as it is today, and has it changed over time? Do you feel that it's become more interesting to the Israeli society as much as it is to the diaspora community?
So the Masorti movement in Israel, we call the conservative Judaism in Israel is called Masorti, but not only in Israel. Only in the U.S., the conservative movement is called conservative. In the other parts of the world, in Latin America, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, and in Israel, it's the Masorti movement. Mm-hmm. And it stands for tradition. I'm happy to say that all over the world, except of the U.S., because conservative Judaism was in the middle of the previous century the mainstream of North American Jewry, and now things changed and it shrank in numbers. In other parts of the world, we are growing. That's both in Israel, we have now about 100 congregations, Batei Knesset, and in Europe, in Latin America. In Latin America, Masorti Judaism is the mainstream Judaism. This is the default.
And that is defined similar to the U.S., like egalitarian minions, for example, some same values as conservative Judaism in America, or different?
With differences. It's based on the same understanding that halakha could have an answer if you look deeply and find a way to deal with it seriously without being afraid of change. Not that you need to go for a change for everything, but without being afraid there are solutions. Yet there are differences between our congregations all over the world. Like in Latin America, all Masorti congregations would play music on Shabbat. In North America, not all. Only like 70%. In Israel, none of the Masorti congregations would play music. It's interesting, not because it is not halachically possible to do it, because this is the vibe of the country. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, only 90% of the congregations all over the world were fully egalitarian. Today, it's 99% of all congregations are fully egalitarian. So there are differences, not that many, and it's a very, very interesting thing to study. In this Congress, it's the first time that we had representation from Uganda.
Oh, wow.
We have a new Zionist Federation in Uganda, and I'm happy that the one that was elected to represent Uganda is Rabbi Gershom Sizumu. He's a graduate of the Ziegler Rabbinical School in Los Angeles, was ordained there. He's a rabbi he is the chief rabbi of Ugandan Jewish community that is mostly it's Masorti Jews. Not a huge congregation. In Uganda, there are about between 5,000 to 8,000 Jews. But it's really interesting to see how conservative Judaism was appealing to those Jews. It is something that I'm looking forward to see how it develops in the Congress. It's the first representation that we have from Africa that is not South Africa.
Incredible. Now, we are running out of time, and I just want to ask you one more question. We're talking about this. You took us back at the beginning to the first Zionist Congress and the vision of Herzl. If Herzl was looking at what happened today, all the finger-pointing, the shouting, and yet the unity that we described that is coming out of it, what do you think he would say about the World Zionist Congress in 2025?
Wow, what a question. Herzl was an extensive writer. He wrote a lot. This is, I think, the way he reflected on things. So thank God we have so many of his diaries. And 10 months prior to the Congress, to the first Zionist Congress in Basel, it was, if I'm not mistaken, in October 1896, he writes in his diary how frustrated he is. You know what? It's more than frustration. He's depressed. Oh. And he says, I'm looking everywhere. I'm talking to people. These Jews are not helping me. These Jews tell me that they help me, but they don't. The other group in Russia or in England, they only want to push themselves forward. His frustration is so huge because of everything that we see, human behavior. And yet you see that 10 months later, he was able to put together the Congress that was a pivotal moment in the Jewish history. And he suffered a lot in the 7th Congress that he led. He died 7 years after the first Zionist Congress. Each and every Congress was chaotic in a way that made him depressed from one hand, but optimistic from other hand. It's always the case. So we know that we feel rightly that generation were the giants, and we are, chagavim, we are dwarfs. It's not the same. I'm sure that he would have seen the democratic, political, heated debates, and he would see this is the thing that I was looking for. To have Jewish sovereignty in Israel with the ability to run a Jewish parliament with world Jewry, with people feel that they are talking about their soul, they are bringing their guts. I think he would have been proud of us.
Wow. Well, Yizhar Hess, Vice Chair of the World Zionist Organization, truly inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Toda rabba, Maayan, for having me.